Life can't get much better. Everything is just how we planned it. But every now and again there's a bump in the road. But somehow we manage. We'll take on anything together, no matter the size of the endeavor. And we'll pull through, we always do. Things are bound to get better. We will fly, we will soar in the moment. Some will win, some will lose, but we'll keep going. Through the eye of the storm, with all the wind and rain, we won't look back, yeah, we'll break the chains. We'll make it, we'll keep moving. Together we can get through it. We'll make it, nothing to it. We'll get through it. Yeah. Oh, we'll get through it. You'll get through it. Yeah. Get through it.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to our first dev stream, I think ever, right? I don't think we've ever had a dev stream prior. Anyways, I'm Chris, Jadai. You can pick either one. I'm one of the community managers here for Ascendant Infinity. Today, I'm joined by Benny, our lead designer for Ascendant Infinity. Welcome, Benny.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah. I hope everyone's having a great day. I'm really excited to have everybody here. Thank you so much for the raids. We saw some of y'all come through. Hope everybody is, happy and eager to learn more about Ascendant Infinity. Ascendant Infinity is a really cool game. If you haven't seen, our past experiences, this is your first time here, just leave a little pod you in the chat, right? But to quickly just get you, caught up, what is Ascendant Infinity? We are an FPS shooter. This shooter is the world's first adaption shooter, right? So we're a squad-based tactical FPS, and it's going to come with a lot of really cool, unique features in it. Each match is different. It's game-changing events, extensive, adrenaline-fueled shooter battles. We're set in a dynamic BioPunk, world. Resources are, they're limited, right? And we have a lot of things that want to kill you. If it's not PvP, we also have PvE. So we've got a lot of creatures in the entire world that, want to, make your face melt. No, welcome again. That's a little bit about Ascendant. For those of y'all who are familiar with our game, we ask you to keep a secret with us. We had playtests prior, and a lot has changed since then. We've been a little bit quiet, but we're opening up just a little bit more. With this stream, I know a lot of people are excited to see either new gameplay or at least updated gameplay, and I'm gonna be very honest right now. We're not gonna have any of that today. We're gonna go cover all the things that are lore right now. So if you didn't know, Ascendant has a very, very rich, and I mean very rich, timeline, very rich lore, very deep history. There's so much happening in the game that isn't exactly told to you on a piece of paper or, cinematically to you in the game. So this is kind of, get you introduced to a couple of things. And Benny is our lore guy. He knows quite literally everything. He corrects me on everything. Benny, something that you want to say a little bit more about what you've done with the lore and how the lore's coming together. Naturally, without releasing too much information.
Yeah, sure. Like you said, one thing we're not doing is that we don't have too many splashy cutscenes, stuff like that. But one thing we've done since the start of the game is to, as we started designing the game now quite a while ago, was to do so alongside the lore. So we're building the world on solid foundations. We don't need to retrofit too many things late on. So all the things that you see in the game has some sort of connection back to the story of the world, and with time we can flesh out more on that. There will be little things you can do to reveal some of the bits about the game's history and the world's history through some missions and stuff like that. But we also have a big library to build from in the future in terms of more story-based content, revealing more of this through all sorts of means, really. There's not that much to say about just how we worked on it, I guess, because it's been a constant thing since the start. Um, but it has also led to, like, some of the things we've been looking at has also led to the game itself. Like, because we developed the world alongside the game ideas, the two were sort of shaping each other a lot along the way. And a lot of things that we have turned the game into, especially map-wise and how the structure of the match plays out, would never have been what it is today, for the fact that we also did lore alongside the start, which was yeah, sort of just a cool and fun way to approach it. As quite often they are done one after the other, as opposed to completely in sync like that.
Yeah.
Especially this kind of game.
Yeah, and from what I could say, the way that the lore is shaped up environmentally, there's a lot of stuff that the game does show that it's indirect storytelling, right? You can walk around the world and you could see a lot of unique things that are happening, such as like destroyed bridges, buildings, and as well as we'll call it vacancy as well. But as far as the environment storytelling, can you talk a little bit more about where we put points of interests inside of the game that really want to highlight what's happening in the world of Ascendant?
Yeah, so there are a few things that are quite subtle if you don't get directly exposed to them. I mean, we're gonna dip into the history a bit to sort of flesh out why things are the way they are. But I mean, even the way that the game begins, you wake up from stasis into an underground vault, which is the player's home shade. So the shade is what we call the little settlements within the world. This might be a good time to actually touch on the past as well, because it sort of leads directly into it. But if we rewind about 1,000 years prior to the game starting, in world obviously, there were a series of events we refer to as the Cascade that sort of kickstarted this whole setting that the players find themselves in. The Cascade was something that took place during the 1900s, basically a little bit in our own as humans past. The world was ravaged by obviously wars, as we already know, but also a lot of natural disasters, man-made disasters. Throughout the early stage of the 1900s into the late 1900s, the world just literally went to shit, really. There were a lot of different, so environmentally, wars, mass migration, all sorts of things going wrong. Everything you can imagine going wrong over quite a long period of time. It's not just one event. It's not a cataclysm. It is a cascade of different, all bad events.
Yeah, so like one thing led to another, right? So it's just like there was a war that happened that affected potential climate changes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a whole chunk of history there, which I don't want to go into too much detail on, because those are also the things we want to dip into in the future. But what's worth knowing is that the planet just became uninhabitable effectively. A lot of different things, a lot of different organizations try to fix it, try to survive in different ways. The one that's most relevant to us and only applied to a small subset of mankind was to go into a sort of a bio/cryo stasis. Not strictly cryostasis, if dig into details, because the brain, importantly, was very active during the process. But basically, a bunch of people hid away underground in secret vaults all across the world and effectively entered a stasis. A thing that's also worth just tangentially mentioning here is that biotechnology is a big deal in this world. It is biotech is as prevalent in this world as our normal technology is. People with an iPhone or a Samsung, whatever, that sort of gadget that everyone has at home, the equivalent in this world is biotech devices. So a lot of the different things that went down to sort of fix the planet in broad terms were also bio-induced. A lot of the wars happened with bioweapons. So it's not just nuclear fallout, it's also biological fallout from destructive weapons and released viruses and other ways to really mess with the inhabitable space of your enemies when it comes to wartime. So all of these things, again, led to the world just becoming completely uninhabitable. Anyway, people in vaults went into a bio-induced stasis and figured we're just going to wait it out. The planet will eventually fix itself. The rapidly changing environment will settle down, and we can wake up into a nice and flourishing world again. Sorry to the other 99% of the human population, we're gonna die while we're down here, but we're gonna hide away. So people did that, and that's where the player then comes in. They wake up a lot later than intended. The planet has settled down. It is teeming with life again. Things are flourishing. But tracing back to all the biological stuff going on, be it releasing like gene spliced and bioengineered microorganisms into the world, along with the fallout of war, the world has also mutated very, very heavily. And the outside world is no longer a place that is hospitable to people. It's flourishing with life. Humans just aren't a part of that world anymore. So the players wake up into a vault, which importantly sits under an earth tree. Earth trees are big, important, bioengineered. How to call them? Like they are. Yeah, they're massive trees. They do what trees do. They eat bad stuff and produce good stuff, oxygen. Although this on a massively increased scale. The earth trees is actually a combination of lots of different vegetation in one, but it breaks down radioactive materials, it cleans toxins out of the air, it cleans the soil, and it basically creates a safe little bubble for people to exist in. And this is what makes up a shade, a settlement in this world. So the player wakes up in their own little settlement. The PvP matches that people might have seen and taken part in take place at a different settlement called Harmony. But I guess we'll be touching more on that in a bit.
Yeah, and it's something I wanted to quickly go back to whenever it came to cryo and the stasis specifically. Whenever we wake up, there's a lot being introduced to the player specifically. What's happening to, because that's a long time. Is there anything happening to the player while we're in this stasis?
Yes. So the another thing that's very important with the fact that in this stasis, it was when people went into stasis. First of all, it was a very untested process, and people expected to be under for about 200-300 years maybe, but it's been a lot longer. The brain is still active. People are still subtly changing in this stasis, and one of the side effects of this is also that imagine having lived for 20, 30, 40 years. So you have about a few decades worth of memories, and then you have 1,000 years worth of dreams and nightmares. Waking up, it might be very hard for some people to distinguish between the two. Your existence now consists to a great majority of just what you might have been making up while you've been effectively in a coma. So a lot of people find their memories very blurry, if not partially missing, or in other ways just twisted. And for some people, this is a massive deal. Some humans don't cope well with this, and other people see it as a chance for a fresh start. It doesn't matter who I was back then. I can recreate myself here in this new world. And some people also obviously deteriorate beyond rescue, unfortunately. So while a few thousand people went into stasis, not everyone's gonna make it back out again. And one of the important things with the fact that everyone's secluded to these little islands is also that even if you have 1,000 people in stasis underground, you don't have enough space to wake them all up. And having now woken up, some people's brains will have turned to mush, and some people's brains are slowly turning to mush, and you probably want to wake them up as quickly as you can, but there's not enough space. And that's also where the struggle for resources and the violent struggle for resources comes in.
You know what? Can relate though. Every time I wake up, my brain is mush, so I just want to go back to sleep. I'm not gonna lie. But for the long end of it, right? Let's just quickly summarize, right? So, a lot of bad shit's going on, right? We've got wars, we've got famines, we've got climate change all happening at once, and there was an attempt to kind of fix things along the way, and we'll get to that in a bit. But eventually, it got to a point where we just decided to just take a nap and make that tomorrow's us problem, right?
Yeah, well, not making a problem at all. It's just nature deal with itself. We'll come back when it's all sorted out.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Sort of the plan. So the earth trees on that note were we tried planting them way back in the day, but they didn't survive effectively. So let's wait until the point where they can survive and they can start cleaning up the world for us, and we can live happily in it again.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
I think that's a good point to make. I think our next topic here that I want to discuss is the Earth tree itself. So, you mentioned it earlier, like the tree is like this big, ginormous ash tree, but like most trees, right? I don't think we're taller than most trees. But whenever it comes to the Earth tree, and as we've seen in both videos and presentations here, the tree is standing taller than almost any other tree that we have, and it's full of unique bioengineered mechanisms and processes that make the tree a big point of the humanity's survival, right? Can you tell us where we start at actually? Because we go into cryo, but we have to wait a little bit in cryo for something to happen.
uh,
So can you go over that?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the Earth Tree project was something that was started pre-cryo, started back in the day. Um, it didn't pan out then. The environments were too hostile, too ever-changing. It wasn't stable enough because the Earth trees, while they are these miracles of bioengineering, they're also very fragile in a way. Um, so while people were asleep, we had systems that monitored the surface, waiting for the climate to sort of stabilize, for the atmosphere to settle down, and there's basically this AI that runs the show down in the vaults during this process. And that alongside these little drones, the drones you come across while playing the game, and little things you can kill for loot, uh, they sort of keep things running while people are away. So while people are absent, the AI and the robots run the show. And they plant the tree, this bioengineered seed. Uh, and a few years after the tree's been planted, the AI wakes up suitable personnel who are needed to carry on the task. Because the robots are incredibly simple, they're stupid. They are built for singular tasks, and the moment it gets a bit more advanced, people need to step in and take over. So, a sort of skeleton crew wake up and they start tending towards the Earth tree. The Earth tree is not all natural, it is bioengineered, it is part machine, part biology. Um, and it's and yeah, like I mentioned a bit earlier, is that its purpose is that it's been built from a lot of specifically bioengineered plants that all do different things, but together they can break down a lot of those uh, forever bad particles that would otherwise linger in the world, or at least long enough, be it microplastics, radioactive isotopes, or just the various fallouts from all the bioweapons that were released back in the wars. So the Earth Tree is a supercharged machine, effectively, that just breaks down
Mm-hmm.
bad shit really quickly, really efficiently, and it creates almost like a little bubble of safety. Around it, the soil is clean, as long as the earth is healthy at least. The soil is clean, the air is healthy, and you need to keep it that way. If your earth tree was to die or get weakened enough, then so does your habitable space. So the earth tree is very, very important,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the main thing that's the primary thing that people are fighting to keep alive. Without the earth tree, you can't keep existing. Uh, this all sounds very dark when it's focused on these these angles, but it's played out in a sort of whimsical, funny world.
Yeah, and I think players may be able to notice. You mentioned that it's like part natural, part organic, right? But also part machine. And if you look closely at the image that's on screen right now, you can kind of see some little glowing bits. You'll get to see a lot more as we obviously release more information about Ascendant. But once you get closer to that tree, it looks sick. And I mean, I'm talking. It looks super rad. You'll see all these really fun little glowing parts around the tree that just make it really stand out. Like you're gonna go, wow, robot tree. But no, it looks super awesome. But to kind of like understand what the tree does a little bit more, it produces. You mentioned it shade, right? And
Oh yes,
shade is important, right? To the game, but it's not like your regular shade from like blocking the
uh,
sun, right?
yeah. So it has a few more things that are very critical to how the game itself plays out. So we have. I was going to touch a bit on the map here because this all sort of ties into one big puzzle. But we have obviously the outside world. That is the outside world outside the Earth tree. Is going to touch on that very briefly because it sort of all ties together. Um, is this mutated wilderness. Again, it's teeming with life. There's tons of life out there, but the foundation for this life is what was left behind after all those wars and so on 1,000 years ago. Mycelium fungi took over and became the bed of new life, and they the creatures that survived this world have survived because either they are hard enough to live in a radioactive toxic bio-wasteland for a few generations before it settles down again, or because they can symbiotically survive through other means. These little microorganisms that sort of spread around the world might keep them alive. So imagine little things inside creatures that live on them, in them, and eat all the bad stuff and keeping the creature alive. Something that you sort of see in the wildlife around this world is that not everything survives by itself. It's also symbiosis with the fungal world. But it also means that the air itself is to some degree inhospitable. It's not like you touch it, you die, but it's not good for prolonged exposure. So there are lots of little toxic spores and stuff like that. And the Earth Tree, because it breaks down all these little bad things that all the life outside is based on, it kills it before it gets in. Is the idea behind an Earth Tree and why you want to keep it strong. To keep an Earth Tree alive also becomes important for the gameplay itself. Like that's the main objective. For those who don't know, is that you fight other teams to capture biocores. Biocores contain this goldeny orange fluid that we call amber. That thing on screen there. The amber is basically sap from the Earth Tree, effectively. The Earth Trees break down a lot of high energy stuff, and obviously it has its own lifeblood, its own fuel that it runs on and it eats. And particularly healthy Earth Trees, those are really strong, produce a bit more than they need. Not much, but a bit more. And people make sure to harvest that for days when the Earth Tree might grow ill and need some maintenance, or when they want to plant a new one and needs to sustain it with with food, give it great chances at surviving. And that's one of the main things you can do with this amber. So the things that you fight for in the game, these flags in this big capture the flag like scenario, are it's basically the lifeblood of the Earth Tree. And this is again what is needed to sort of make sure that your own Earth Tree can survive into the future. Because if it dies, so does your colony.
So instead of just relying on nature to feed the Earth Tree itself, like most trees, this one requires a little bit more maintenance. So these biocores, this amber in particular, is what's powering these trees to survive.
Because the Earth Tree sort of lives in a predator-prey relationship with the outside world. Like on one hand, it eats the bad stuff in the outside world. It provides food to it, but the outside world is also actively trying to kill it. They are at war with each other, and that war is also something that's actually visualized in the game map itself. We got what we call the Dead Yard, which is a big area between the inner shade, so where the settlement is, and the wilderness outside. We have this big no man's land, which is the battle between the outside world and the Earth Tree visualized. It's a no man's land where nothing can really flourish. The Earth Tree kills the outside stuff, but the small vegetation that will grow from the Earth Tree outwards gets killed by the outside stuff as well. So this is constant push and pull between the wilderness and the Earth Tree itself.
Yeah, it's not just the Earth Tree, but even players, throughout their entire gameplay of Ascendant they're battling both of just resource management. You got to fight other humans to capture these biocores, which is a bit of the core loop, right? But also, you've got the other environments, creatures trying to invade, expand on their own, right? They're just doing what they know is survival of the fittest. They don't think of it as much complex as we do, huh?
Yeah, I mean and this is actually just harping back to the start of the stream when we talked about the way that the game and the lore sort of evolved hand in hand, is that the game map itself and how we've laid out the map of the game ties directly into this lore of the outside world versus the Earth Tree. If you look at the map from above, it's very roughly like 3 concentric circles. You have the wilderness as the outer circle. Then you have the Dead Yard, that no man's land, which is the barren space between the center and the outer. And it's this part that people need to cross. I should also mention here that the location you're fighting in is not the same location that you are starting in when the game begins, where your home is.
Oh, so this is a different Earth Tree location.
Yes, so you start. So you, the player, wakes up into a relatively young shade. So I'm jumping between topics all the time here, but you, the player, start in your home shade, which is relatively new. You have an Earth Tree on the surface above you. It's not big and powerful yet, so you haven't moved onto the surface yet. Let it grow and get stronger first. Stay underground where it's safer. So you're back home, and the PvP matches themselves take place in another shade, which is a few days travel away. And this is also why you find yourself starting when the match begins. You find yourself in a vehicle. The thematic here is a big time jump where you travel from your home in a vehicle for maybe a week or two to arrive at this other shade called Harmony, which has been, for reasons that players won't know about yet, but it is abandoned. The people who used to run Harmony are no longer here. You don't know what happened to them. They sort of just vanished overnight. There used to be some trade going on between your shade and Harmony, but Harmony was basically like the big fish in the pond. There are more shades around as well, but all smaller than Harmony, and Harmony was like the one ruling the show. And the moment that the people at Harmony disappeared, that left a power vacuum behind, and it also left a lot of valuable resources behind. They had the strongest earth tree, it produces the most amber. They have a lot of supplies done in storage underground and stuff like that. So it's become a bit of a gold rush that all the smaller shades around are now sort of picking at the carcass of Harmony, traveling there to obtain the biocores containing the amber and other supplies as well.
Okay, so when you say that there's like younger shades, right? That implies that there's more than just one particular Earth tree, the one that we're seeing here, right? So this is Harmony.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So around the world are hundreds, if not thousands, of shades. But because of because people are walking up into this brand new inhospitable world, everyone's walking up sort of isolated. Every Earth tree that might blossom around the world is an island, effectively. The people sometimes live in isolation forever, never realizing there are more shades around. Some of them manage to make contact with each other, but usually after quite a long time. The shade the player finds themselves in took a few years before they realized Harmony was even out there. And because they also all live in isolation, it means that every shade has its own little form of governance, effectively. Like, how do you run the show back home? What are the goals of the shade? How do the people choose to exist together? Is the objective just to thrive, to wake up more people from stasis, to expand, to become powerful? How do you secure a future? So everyone has different ideas of this. So there are lots of shades around. In this particular region of the world, you, the player, come from a relatively small one. And Harmony, again, was importantly, the biggest shade in the area, the one that sort of ran the show. They took a more violent approach to it. They wanted to they had all the supplies, they had the strongest earth tree, everything was on their terms, basically. And that's why when Harmony fell, there's, again, a lot of valuable stuff up for grabs, but other shades in the area might see the opportunity to become the new kingpin. Like, there's a power vacuum here, we could fill it.
Yeah, so now it's just more or less a free-for-all. You go in, get what you need, and hope you can come back home with it.
Yeah, even though Harmony was the big bad guy, it was also relied upon to survive, because Harmony's Earth Tree was like the only one actively producing an excess of amber. So people who want to really secure a future have storage of like extra supplies of amber, relied on them. And also Harmony has a lot of they focus a lot more on personal gain than on saving those people down in stasis. So they have a lot of production infrastructure. They can produce a lot of weapons, materials. They have more farming space instead of living space, stuff like that. So they produce a lot of stuff that other shades came to rely on over the years. And with Harmony gone, it also puts some of the smaller ones at risk. Like, without their supplies, can we make it? It's also worth mentioning this is also happening over spans of years. Like, people from shades don't go and just visit each other because you don't have airports. You can't really afford to invest resources into trying to experiment with flights and stuff like that. So,
commerce shuts down.
Yeah, so travel is very dangerous, first of all, because you're going through this wilderness in this inhospitable atmosphere, and it takes a long time. So going somewhere else is a big deal, and only very few people even do it. And that's one of the people the players, without a choice, become something we call convoyers, people who make a sort of a living out of, or either choose to take on the role or force into the role out of necessity to become the people to explore the outside world. Not many dare to, because it's a dangerous place. Not many are able to, and many who do don't make it back. So So all these sort of plays between the shades play out over a long period of time. Um, Again, the shade the players lived in has been around for about a decade or so when the player comes into the picture, and
Okay.
Harm has been around for about 30, 50 years.
Quick question. This is super unrelated. Do you think if like you could, would you be able to just chop down a tree and like count the rings of an Earth tree to see how old it is?
Not really, because it is a big conglomeration of lots of different like things in one. There's technology in there, first of all.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just piping and stuff going on, but there's also a lot of vegetation forming one big unit. So it's not just a single, like it's not like an oak tree. It's not just a single trunk. It's actually a lot of stuff in there that's sort of coexist. They all have their own little tasks. Like this thing breaks down substance A, this one breaks down substance B, and so on, and they all sort of work together.
Okay. All right. No, that's
Uh,
interesting. I asked that because I'm just like, if I chop down an Earth tree, what would I find in there? But no, that's interesting. I get to potentially find an iPhone in there apparently. So.
yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of valuable tech in there, if nothing else.
All
And
right.
that's also
Cool.
partially why people need to be involved in the growing of, because you need to maintain it. When as a tree grows, so do the structures that support it.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the process of leaving to go to other shades, create trade. Let's talk about whenever we leave the Earth Tree and its shade particularly, and that starts with those outer layers of the Earth Tree, right? You've got the dead yard, and you've also got the wilderness outside of it. The dead yard is just what looks like straight up dirt. Can you elaborate a little bit more on what the dead yard really means
Uh,
to Ascendant?
yeah, yeah. So the dead yard is, I mean, first of all, very important for gameplay reasons, because that's the bit of open, vulnerable space you have to cross when going into the center to capture biocourse, and when you want to extract, you need to cross it back out again. So it's very open, vulnerable. You probably want to approach it with uh, some thinking in mind. Either there's no one around, so it's safe to cross, or use smokes or other things to your advantage to get across safely. But in lore, what's formed the dead yard is this push and pull between the outside world and the Earth Tree. Um, Under the Earth Tree, regular, as we see it, regular vegetation can thrive. Your normal grass and flowers and trees. But in the outside world, in the wilderness, that has this sort of very uh, predatorial fungal foundation to it all. Stuff that eats things. The whole outside world devours life, or it lives in symbiosis with life that provides it with sustenance. So the the little weeds and trees and grass that comes from the earth tree doesn't make it out there. If you plant a flower in the wilderness, the the spores will infect it and take it over and eat it. So it won't thrive. But also the earth tree itself is the protector of the inner part of the map. So the earth tree likewise breaks down those toxic spores and other hostile things in the atmosphere. The dead yard is effectively the battleground between nature visualized. It is the earth tree kills any fungal spores that make it out there, so they can't flourish. But likewise, the vegetation that comes from the inner and grows out gets eaten by the outside world, and this is just the very slowly moving battlefield between the two. So it is mostly void of life. Nothing can really flourish there because both sides have things killing the other side's little soldiers, so to speak.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and we're seeing
and
like a lot of the footage here where some things are trying to. We've got some what looks like very either dirty or water or red water. But is there anything that comes into the dead yard
uh,
that wouldn't make its way into the wilderness or vice versa back into Harmony?
yeah, I mean, so the dead yard is for so the dead yard, I should also mention, is like this. It's a it's a slow war between the two. Over time, you can see the dead yard moving. If the earth tree is weak, the dead yard will shrink and start strangling the inner shade. But if the earth tree is strong, the dead yard will get pushed out, and the earth tree will claim more and more space. For things that move through quickly, briefly, it's not a big deal. Like it's so void of life that the air is relatively clean. Um, but obviously, it bears the scars of the things that do fight
Mm-hmm.
and die there. So like you have your wart has been basically colored by the little spores that come from the inside out and die and fall down and just
Okay.
sink to the
So
ground. You have the little weeds that sort of stick around for a while. They grow and might try to flourish, and then eventually they also get pushed back, or they continue to flourish if the earth tree is really strong. So you see little hints of life that's trying to cling on, and you see the fallout of life that has been there.
mhm.
The In our case, you also see the scars of people fighting over harmony. So
Yeah.
obviously, the more recent development is that everyone wants to strip it clean of resources, and there are also some signs of that. There are creatures and so on here. But it's also marred by the wildlife itself. One of the creatures that you can find in the dead yard is actually ties in closely with that mycelium and so the fungal hive mind that lives in the outside world, which is uh, a burrower, which is basically
Don't give him
the lore
away
behind
yet.
it.
Don't give him
Yeah,
away
okay,
just
yeah,
yet. We're
I won't give
saving.
him
We're
away yet.
saving him.
Let's,
Yeah, we're saving him.
yes, let's have him. But yes, there are some things that not necessarily thrive out here, but go out here with some purpose in mind. But yeah, and then also beyond the dead yard, that's when you get to the wilderness proper.
We get to the pretty colors, the quite literal Crayola box of colors here in the wilderness.
Yeah, so this wilderness is teeming with life. There's a lot of things growing and flourishing out here, but again, it's nothing like what used to exist back in the day. I mean, the bare similarities, the foundations, the ancestors are the same, but how they have developed, what the foundations for life are like out here, is now very, very different. So the wilderness is I mean, even the atmosphere here is hostile. Like, it's not just the creatures can kill you; it's the air you breathe in will slowly kill you. How quickly it does so differs from person to person. You might be able to be out here for hours and not notice any effects. Another person might start feeling nauseous and quite bad after just 20, 30 minutes. But it's one of these things where, I mean, in a sort of weird parallel, I sort of draw the parallel to like going to the dentist. You can have your teeth x-rayed just fine, uh, no real risk. But the person who's run the x-rays like 30 times a day for years on end don't like it. Like that prolonged exposure is not good, even if a single hit is not the end of the world. So people can go out here for like just short stints of time and not suffer any consequences. Um, but if you're out here for a prolonged period of time, then again, these little spores will start making into your skin, into your lungs. They will embed themselves. That's how they coexist with the wildlife. A lot of creatures out here live in symbiosis with these things that benefit them being inside their bodies. But people have not been mutating over generations to become part of this ecosystem. So for people, it can be quite dangerous. Some people survive it. Like there's certainly the occasional story of a person who does get infected by these things and actually lives beyond it. But many people don't, and it's not something that most people at least, don't want to willingly expose themselves to. And obviously, because when it comes to going long distances, like going to Harmony, that's also where those vehicles come into play, where there are specially made vehicles to keep this stuff outside. You're in a safe little cockpit of a vehicle. You're traveling there for a few days. You arrive at Harmony, and you fight some other people. Then you go back to your vehicle and drive back home again.
Okay. What's the worst thing? Like, what does death look like for anyone who's exposed for too long?
I mean, it can be quite sudden because, fortunately, when you get weak enough that you are no longer gonna make it, there are plenty of creatures that are happy to eat you and cut your suffering short.
So you're just like out there wandering, and if it's not the spores that's going to kill you, it's going to be probably some ginormous creature that's superseded evolution.
But yeah, the things that but otherwise the things that touch your skin, if you're out for too long, they will settle down. They'll start growing. They'll probably start eating you, because that's what they used to do to other creatures. They eat the toxins they inhale. They eat. If a creature can't survive on its own, eats a fruit out in the wilderness, they take the good part, and the other organisms that are inside their body eat the bad part, and they live in harmony together. Again, people don't have that sort of symbiosis built up with the outside world, so the people effectively end up with a lot of sort of parasites, I suppose, although not in the strict definition of the word, but these fungal life forms that start growing inside the body and slowly eat you from the inside out, really.
Like a
But again, some people
microbiome.
actually, Sort of. I mean, they might burst through and actually appear on the flesh through the skin. And some people survive like this. We do have different people in this world. Obviously, have different approaches to what should we do? How should we carry on into the future?
Ooh.
So you have people who screw this new world. We tried living in harmony with nature, see where it got us. It's now trying to kill us. So let's just pave the whole thing over. Let's just live on technology. And then you have the people who want to sort of recreate the world as it was. Like, well, we have the Earth trees. If we can plant more Earth trees, we can push all this bad stuff away, and we can terraform the world again. We can plant. We have seed vaults. We can plant our old flora and fauna and into the world and repopulate it basically into a nature that's more familiar to us. And then obviously other people who say, well, who are we to destroy this new life? We are the intruders here. Maybe we should learn to live in harmony with the outside world instead. And those are the people maybe a bit more likely to experiment with, what if I let myself get a bit infected by these spores? Can actually end up living in symbiosis like other creatures out there. So you have people who purposefully do this, who welcome in the infections. Not many make it, but some people do. However, the downside of that is that if a person who does survive is now infected with stuff from the outside world, go back into the Earth tree's influence, then the Earth tree starts killing the stuff that keeps them alive. So
okay. Well, I can't wait
there's an odd balance there.
I can't wait to talk more about them. Not today. We'll figure out more on what happens with some of these environments, but as we've seen, despite the man-made issues, right, of Cascade happening, it looks really beautiful, honestly. Like, the team did a really stellar job really putting together like this colorful world that just has a lot of history to it. There's purpose to it, and it's not just like here's a pretty red tree. That's a red tree. There's a purpose to it all. So no, thanks for covering a little bit more about how the spores work and how living outside of the Earth tree is for a human, because a lot of questions can come up to that. It's just like, well, we know the tree's big, but what happens if I just take a step outside without my shoes on, right?
Yeah, I mean, another thing that's worth touching on is also that what makes the outside world dangerous. You can also see some signs of this again in like the game mechanics we have. People like weaponizing things. So when it comes to like these toxic mushrooms you might find in the world, of toxic fruits, people make grenades out of them. I mean, you can find plants in the wilderness you can actually use as weapons. They convert these things into weapons, like we have the spore rifles, for example, where you're actually taking these toxins and put them into bullets, and that's purposefully infect our enemies with them.
That's rad.
So all the things that are dangerous in the outside world are also sort of repurposed as weapons against your enemies.
So you're not just left with what your ancestors left for you behind. It's also adapting to your own environment and using with what you have, right?
Yeah, and like when it comes to the game itself,
specifically for guns, nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. Let's focus on guns first, other luxuries later. But yeah, I mean that's also been a thing that's sort of shaped how the design of the game has evolved as part of that story. Like when you play the game, if you stay out in the wilderness, there are things that you can capitalize on and earn there that you can't get in the center of the map. So you can gain again consumables and other supplies out in the wilderness that aren't around in the center. So there are also different reasons to sort of visit different parts of the map and approach a match in different ways as a result.
Okay. No, that's awesome. I think we're ready to move on to some of our final topics here. And without, there being a wilderness, there exists a specific animal kingdom of sorts, right? You've got, we can look at IRL things right now, right? We've got lions, we've got zebra, we got giraffe. If you're in America, we've got a lot of pigeons who don't know how to build their own nest. But when it comes to Ascendant, there's a lot of creatures out there that have, we'll call it adapted, or not even just adapted, but were designed to be specific on the efforts to rebuild the world where it was. Let's start somewhere where I think a lot of people noticed the most, and that was our snails. Actually, let's talk about the snails.
Yeah, Catamore to be precise.
Catamore. Okay.
But yes, they are effectively giant snails, but we call them Catamore. Yeah, so Catamore is one of the more common creatures you'll see in the wilderness. This is one of the examples that sort of date back to early human intervention, during the Cascade, pre-stasis. So this little creature has its origins in some of the efforts that were made back then to try to clean up the world, like sort of proactively. Like let's bioengineer some organisms that can eat this bad stuff. Let's spread it on the world. Let's embed them into host creatures that can take them around the world into places we don't want to go. And these were small things back then, but then many centuries passed and they mutated. They were the only thing in the world that could eat these things. So in terms of the food chain, they were the only thing in the food chain, and they ate everything else. So they flourished.
And they had a field day for years, literally. They got stuck inside of McDonald's and they were like, all right, here's unlimited chicken nuggets for me and me exclusively.
Yeah, pretty much. So, these things have sort of evolved from evolved to an extreme degree, mutated very, very heavily over the centuries, since they were little microorganisms released on purpose by people. But again, they thrived because they were designed to live in exactly this environment, and they've now had 1,000 years to mutate into lots of different subspecies. So you come across different types of catamart in the wild. Some are more aggressive than others. Mostly they are they're a bit cattle-like. They sort of just roam and graze. They're not particularly aggressive. They're what we internally call our loot piñatas. They sit there to be killed by players and drop valuable loot. But in the ecosystem, they are they can eat most things out there. They've been designed to.
They can eat it. They could eat a whole human body, though. Probably, maybe.
Yes, I mean they are like these things are like approaching 2 meters tall, 6, 7 feet.
I'm about to say you got to use American numbers for that one, man. I don't know where meter is.
Yeah, so they're about as tall as a human.
They're definitely as tall as me. Like I'm standing at a solid vertical 5'4", so yeah, it seems like I cannot take this hand-to-hand combat. I mean, probably, but it would take a while.
Yeah, I mean they're not very quick. They have little stumpy legs to move themselves around a bit faster than a snail might do, but not by much.
Yeah, and in the game too, I think we could talk a little bit more about this. We'll see that like some of these, different snails or these catamals that we'll see across, whether it's the wilderness, mostly the wilderness, right? But we'll see them kind of flourish in different, colors, right? You'll notice, and we're not going to give it away, but you'll notice that like sometimes you'll see, better loot drop from, we'll call it maybe a different color, like a higher tiered color between red, blue, and green. So just something to keep an eye out.
Yes, I mean, the backdrop is obviously that they have mutated into lots of different strains of Catamo, and some of those are rarer, and in game terms, rarer also means more valuable, more health and more loot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, these guys have been a mascot for us for a while now. If you were part of our earlier play tests, a lot of y'all were big fans of the Catermaul here. And one of our favorite feedbacks that we got was, can we put a saddle on it and ride it? I don't think we've shared that with the dev team.
No, this is the first I've heard of that. But I mean, probably could. The problem is that they're not very fast, so you won't go anywhere very quickly.
It's not about not about the destination. It's about the experience.
It's also going there in style. I mean, they are also pseudo weaponized. They do have a strong acid they can spit because they break down a lot of bad stuff. They're very acidic.
So we'll treat it like a horse. You just kick it in its shell, and it shoots its little acidic spike, like little shots at you.
Just like a horse does.
That's exactly what a horse does. All right. Well, I have a surprise guest for you, Benny. We're going to be talking about now is someone buried near and dear close to you, and that is your mom. Tell us a little bit more about the gore lizard.
Yeah. Thank you.
If anyone didn't capture that, I'm gonna be so sad.
Right. Yeah. So my mom also made it into the future. She mutated a bit. But no, the gore
Just
lizard
a bit?
is not much. She has a frill now at the back of her. That's about the only change, really. But no, yeah. So these are one of the very much more aggressive creatures in the wilderness. I don't want to say too much about their history, but they also have a history that ties into people and experiments and can we gene splice something together that can actually survive in these harsh environments back in the day. So I mean, you see signs of different creatures in this. There's obviously a bit of primate in this, because ultimately the goals of the various experiments being done was to see, can we somehow uh, genetically manipulate people to survive in the world, and we need something to try it on. And obviously
The go-to
go to stuff is
was big old
to
monkey
animals.
lizard man.
Yeah, well, yeah. Uh, let's imbue
That's
Monkey
that's
Man
my
with
that's
some
my
lizard.
generalization, at least, if I stared at it long enough.
But yeah, again, these guys have since been sort of roaming the wilds for a few centuries now, and yeah, I mean they are one of the more not oh, yeah they again like Catmull, they come in different varieties. Some are more dangerous than others. But they are slightly tougher opponents. They also are more aggressive opponents. They will initiate fights a lot more than a Catmull would. Um, they have some weak spots. You can break them down in some clever ways to make easy work of them. But yeah, they also come with obviously more loot as a result. But yeah, lore-wise, they are one of the things that do survive through symbiosis as well. These are the things that actually survive in the world, not by themselves, but because uh, they are inhabited by little things that keep them alive. Unlike the
Okay.
Catamore, which can survive just on its own. They sort of come from two different families of creatures in that regard, two different types of creatures in this new world. Those that live by themselves and those that rely on symbiosis. So gore lizards require the symbiosis. And there's another little detail about those types of creatures is that because they rely on the symbiosis, when they get in contact with a healthy earth tree, uh, they suffer because the earth tree starts killing the stuff inside them that helps these guys stay alive. So when these creatures start making it into the actual bounds of the Earth Tree, the territory of the Earth Tree, that is typically a very bad sign because the Earth Tree is clearly not attack them aggressively enough that they feel any effect of it. So usually when these guys start actually getting into the perimeter of a settlement, it's not just that we have a big monster to deal with. It will probably also mean that, oh crap, our Earth Tree is maybe dying because it's no longer fighting off these things.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. So it's unable to like it's a telltale sign of just, hey, you got to go downstairs, check and make sure that the generator's on with the power tree, right?
Yep. Get some
Okay.
biocores, fuel it up again.
Oh man, that's interesting. That's a new one for me actually. You're dropping all the big hints today. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
so normally like a standard settlement, a healthy earth tree and its a company shade, it doesn't need to worry too much about these guys because they stay away from a healthy tree because it inflicts direct pain on them. Obviously, if you are, I mean, these guys are also one of the reasons why travel in the wilderness is a lot more dangerous. If it was just there's some iffy things in the air, we could all just hazmat suit up and start walking. But you don't want to be caught in a big bulky hazmat suit when these guys are around. So that's not really a particularly realistic option.
I want to be caught near this thing in any kind of situation. If I'm being honest, these guys are tall, by the way. I don't know if anyone was able to capture it from our cinematic trailer, but these guys are huge. Like they're like massive. How like like you said, Catermauls
So
were
they
around like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, so these are uh, in uh, in meters. They are a bit over 3 meters tall when standing like this. Obviously, a lot more when they are standing on the hind legs. So like like about 3.2 to 3.5. So approaching about twice the height of a human. Not quite, but thereabouts.
I could take them.
Standing on the hind legs, a lot more than that.
I got that dog in me. I could take them. I know I can.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, one last creature that is not necessarily featured in the trailer. This is a little bit of a sneak peek into what's to come, and this is going to be someone that you do see in our key art, but not a lot. And this is going to be the Burrower. The Burrower is what looks like the absolute devastation of Floridian gator. Local Florida man survives mutated gator. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the burrower?
So this is like a reptilian mole, and it's absolutely enormous. So this one dwarfs the gore lizard. These guys are, or in this case, it's a female because it has a lot of babies with her as well. So these are quite rare. They appear as basically boss monsters in the game. You can find them in the dead yard. They are usually spending most of the time sort of burrowing around, making tunnels underground. They effectively swim through the earth like some sort of land shark. And they are very territorial, very aggressive, and very dangerous. They eat pretty much anything. They are also very, very, as far as lore goes, they're very tightly linked to the outside world's foundations. Like these things are not directly from people. These have been sort of almost molded and genetically bred by sort of the fungal hive mind out there. So these things also, like the gore lizard, survive via symbiosis. But almost like those little ants that have so become famous, or well, ant plus fungi. Like little fungi takes over the brain of an ant and makes it climb to the top of a tree, and there it
Zombie
sprouts.
ant,
Yeah, pretty much. This is sort of a giant example of that, where all the burrowing these guys do is sort of to break loose the earth for the mycelium network, that we call it, the fungal network out in the wild, to sort of be able to more easily spread and grow. So this is almost like a giant soldier of the mycelium network. So they spend all their time burrowing. They love digging. They have a lot of babies that are equally aggressive and equally love to dig. And yeah, you can come across them in mainly the dead yard, where they can just burst out of the ground and surprise you. They do, however, drop very good loot. So if you can take them on, then it is worthwhile doing so. Obviously, it's quite risky because you're gonna be loud and potentially draw attention, and other teams, I'm sure, are gonna love to jump opportunity to kill you while you're fighting this.
Oh man, yeah. I remember my first time experiencing this, and it was a surprise to me. Every day is a new experience with the game. We get to always, build new things and see new things that it took months to, hunch over, put it down into the game, right? But my first experience with this was very, very scary. I was like, what's going on? I wasn't really sure what was happening, and I think I was playing with. Elliot, and he was just, oh yeah, this is the burrower. And I'm like, oh okay, yeah, just casually drop that in there. And it's just ginormous gator mole thing in front of me, just shooting things at me and doing its best to absolutely what felt like eat me.
Yeah, these are I mean, very aggressive. The way to escape is sort of, I mean, you can sort of escape the big mama because she can't fit in many places. So if you run for the trees or through tight doorways, you can get rid of her. But the juveniles that will spawn from little burrows around the area,
you can absolutely fight her children too. Like they will come after you.
Yep.
They come out like ants. They just swarm you, and it's so terrifying. All right.
Yeah, they are.
Oh no, go on. Sorry.
No. I mean, I was always just diving into the gameplay aspects of it as well. But she is, even though she is very dangerous, she is worth fighting. Like it's the only source for one of the most powerful weapon in the game. Drops from her as a guaranteed drop. So if you do come across one and want to get your hands on a hyper cannon, she's the one to kill for it, along with lots of other goodies.
It's so fun about the burrower too, because like you'll be able to see it and identify like, oh, that's a big chunk. And whenever it comes to Ascendant, and why we call it an adaption shooter is for many reasons, right? We do have the biocore, which you want to extract with you as many times as you possibly can. But there's lots of other ways that you need to adapt, right, to your gameplay. So if you're out roaming about with your squad and you activate this, or you come to this event with the burrower, other players are going to see you, and they can choose two ways to support or either just grief you entirely. Just kill you and then try and take the burrower, or maybe speed up the process, and y'all can work together as a team to break it up, like just to kill the burrower, but then it turns into a free for all. Yeah, then you fight for the loot after that. So you could do that in so many different ways. The experience with it is you could be a sniper, you can all have snipers, and you can have the other team just with like shotguns or assault rifles in front. It changes so dynamically, and that's where adaption shooter kind of comes in the.
Yeah, we literally had a game just about 2 hours and 15 minutes ago where almost that exact scenario played out. We happened to have the BioPunk at the time, crossing the dead yard, and ran across one of these. We had a team chasing us, so it was just either we kill this now, or we leave this thing to be killed by the team chasing us, and then they will have the hyper cannon to wipe us out with. So we ended up in a sort of a 3-team fight with the boss in the middle, and we were trying just to use the boss as physical cover between us and the other team. In that, we managed to scrape it out, get the hyper cannon, wipe the other team with it, so panned out well for us. But it was I've played this game for literally thousands of hours now, and it was just one of those things, like this scenario exactly this has just never played out before. And it just, one of the things I love about the game is just, you're constantly asked to make choices. And it's like, we can just carry on running and let another team take on the boss and get the rewards, or we choose to fight other teams with the boss around to try to secure it for ourselves, or we try to kill the boss while fighting the other team and use the drops of the boss to then hopefully use that to win said fight.
Yeah, the autonomy of choice is awesome.
It gets chaotic. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we've just about covered all of our topics in a very nice 1 hour wrap up. Actually, I'm really impressed. Actually, we did good here. Normally we would do a Q&A, but I do see one question in here, and I wasn't going to do a Q&A. I see one question in here that really caught my eye that I would like to have your perspective on this, Benny. Can you pet and befriend a burrower?
Not yet.
Oh.
But because the question has been asked, we sort of have to do something, I guess. I mean, I don't know when. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. I want those questions in the game. I want a lot of questions about, oh, could we do this? And I want to be able to say yes as often as possible. Not right now. No, you can't pet them. But let's see what the future brings.
We'll see what happens. All right. Everybody, thanks so much again for joining us. Benny, thank you for your time. I know it's getting a little bit into your evening, so thank you again for supporting us and building the game that we have here. A lot of people are looking forward to it, and everything's just shaped up so much since I think most of the people who've been here have seen it from last year. So thanks again, Benny. This was awesome. Give us a thank you, Benny, in chat, guys. This is awesome. This isn't the last time you'll see Benny. Probably he'll come around another time. He doesn't know that. This is me volunteering him. But you might see him around a couple of times after this. No, this is going to be a monthly series of content. So there's a lot more questions to be asked. I know more people want to see gameplay. More people want to see, when's the next beta going to come up? When can I play? Is always the big questions here. But trust the process. We're working on it. For now, the most that we can ask for, and if you haven't, please wishlist us on either Steam or Epic Games. That makes a huge difference for us. The more wishlists, the better it is for visibility across the entirety of Ascendant. But thanks again, everybody who came in, took the time with us. This is really exciting. We get to finally open up a little bit more about the game. We haven't really been able to for like the past few months, especially over holiday. Everyone's over Christmas, right? Thanks again, everybody. This was awesome. Look forward to seeing a little wrap-up blog after this as well. Probably coming about next week, probably Monday, Tuesday time. We'll have like a little blog. Might have a little bit more stuff to share in terms of maybe visuals. But for the most part, this is where we're gonna wrap things up right now. All right. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone. Shut up.
Everybody, y'all have a great rest of y'all's day, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.